Fans of the Royal Navy rejoice, because we now have access to the Type 45 destroyer. This is the British Navy newest warship. The Royal Navy gets an air defense destroyer. This particular ship, the Daring, was laid down in 2003, launched in 2006 and commissioned in 2009. There are, at least in this mod, two different versions of this ship, because a ship is hardly a static platform. It is something that changes along with its life and, of course, with the situation outside. What is the geopolitical situation? What sort of weapon systems are needed? What sort of platform does this thing need to become? Now, these ships, at least in sea power at the moment, the Daring and the more advanced Dauntless, they are two different versions of the Type 45. These ships are used with the PAMS system, that's a PAAMS, Principal Anti-Air Missile System, which is the VLS system over there, integrated with the radar and launching a couple of Aster 15s and Aster 30s. That is the whole combination and the whole firepower of this ship. But then everything started to change. And now they're also upgrading these ships, such as the upgrade that the Dauntless, at least in this game, already has, with the Naval Strike Missile. That's an anti-ship missile, which can also hurt ships, which is something that Daring really cannot do. Well, I suppose you could sail up to it, or try and get into range with the Aster 15, because the Aster 30 might be able to do anti-surface targets, but not at that range. So yeah, now we actually have a Naval Strike Missile. Outside of that, we have a 4.5-inch gun. We have a 20mm phalanx defense system. Interesting that they didn't go with a rolling airframe missile. Noisemakers and chaff. And of course, we're going to have some pretty advanced radars. At least advanced for sea power eras. Please don't mind the date, because you can still change this in the mission file if you wish to. This is just the standard date that the game always picks for a scenario if you just hop into the editor and add a mission. Now, the Daring, as mentioned, was commissioned in 2009, so she's a bit advanced for sea power, and some of her stats might reflect that, such as that surface-to-air missile system out to 86 miles. Aside from that, of course, we have her radar systems, and that is the Samson, the air and surface search radar out to 216 miles, with an altitude range of 0, and this is important, 0 to 328,000 feet. If you have an altitude of, let's say, 15 or 30 feet as a minimum altitude detection, you're going to run into trouble. Because you've got sea-skimming missiles coming at you, you can't see those. Now, we also have an air search radar, which is an L-band. This is on the S-band. I couldn't tell you what the difference is. This thing is 216 miles. And then we also have a navigation radar. We have a visual sensor. And we have a hull-mounted sonar up to 27 kilometers active range or 60 kilometers passive range, so let's say about 30 miles. Of course, this is going to depend on sea state as well as conditions aboard the ship. How fast are you going? Are you making a ton of noise? Is the enemy making a ton of noise? All of these things are going to be impacted. Now, these ships, they had a bit of a rough start. Because when they were introduced, there was a bit of an error, or rather, an oversight, as some of these ships were reporting overheating. Yeah. It's not the Royal Navy's best situation, but the coolant system for these engines was pretty bad. I believe it was the intercooler? Yeah. It was revealed in 2016 that, due to a design flaw on the Northrop Grumman intercooler attached to the Rolls-Royce gas turbines, power availability was diminished considerably when functioning in a warm climate of the Persian Gulf. Oops. I believe they had some serious issues with the power plant, and I'm not sure if they had to tow one of these ships back, but it's not a good look for your newest and supposedly most modern destroyer. Thankfully, I believe that those issues were mostly resolved. A planned refit was scheduled from 2019 to 2021 to fully resolve the problems with the 6 ships of the class. I gotta give credit to the British when it comes to naming their ships, because when they go for something such as the Daring, we have ships which all feature that that sort of naming convention. So we have the Daring, the Nautilus, the Diamond, the Dragon, the Defender, and the Duncan. The Duncan is the newest boat, newest ship. She's been commissioned in 2013, which doesn't make her that much newer than Daring, because she was commissioned in 2009. So yeah, there's about 4 years difference. And they're all getting a power improvement package, and they are getting the Naval Strike Missile. Now, in this game we have the 2022 version, and we have the 2026 version. There is hardly any difference, except for that Naval Strike Missile and the CAM. Now, the CAM is the Common Anti-Air Modular Missile, which is developed for the role of Advanced Medium-Range Air Defense, replacing the aging... oh god, you still had those. The GWS-26 Seawolf. When playing around with British ships, I... Oh, you picked that up, did you? I didn't have the best time with Seawolf and other platforms. It is based on the ASRAAM air-to-air missile system, but with new software, a turnover pack, folding fins, an RF seeker, and a data link. So basically a whole new missile. Other components, not directly taken from ASRAAM, were reused from other programs such as Seawolf Block 2 and PAMS to lower cost and increase commonality. 32-mile range. Pretty good. Pretty good. And they do carry quite a lot of the Aster. At least that's the new version. So the 2026 build carries that increased ammo loadout, which I suppose for a 2026 ship might be more important. I'd say this ship is very defensive. It can do anti-submarine operations if you really want it to, because it does have a Lynx. It has an aircraft capacity of 2, so you could immediately launch a Lynx if you suspect there might be a submarine out there, and you can detect those with that hull-mounted sonar. So it's possible that you pick it up. I was wondering if they would, and there is an actual submarine here, which they picked up at about 18 miles out. That's pretty good. Yeah, that was Dauntless that picked that up. That's pretty good. Most of the time in sea power, you're going to be or in the position where you might be able to engage the submarine before it engages you. Although with Soviets, you never know. Sometimes they carry anti-ship missiles. Anyway, Dauntless, I'd say, is capable of operating in a higher threat spectrum, because she is capable of going up against other ships, which is something that the other ship, the Daring, without her anti-ship missile, can't really do. That can be considered a problem. Because if you don't really have any offensive capabilities, you might be defending the fleet, but what are you going to do? You're just going to shoot down every missile that's incoming until you run out. And then what? You're just going to go home and rearm? Because you won't be able to punch back. You won't be able to strike at the enemy and make sure that they never do that again. So, yeah, I am very much in favor of giving these things something like the Naval Strike Missile and make sure that they actually have some punch to throw back at the enemy. Now, let's have a look. If there is a submarine, we can launch a helicopter, and these helicopters are the Sea Lynx. They're armed with the Mark 46 Mod 2. It is nothing too special. They also carry an anti-ship missile loadout if you want to go with the Sea Skua. That's about it. They do not drop sonobuoys. Interesting. Because it means that this ship does have some ASW capability, but you're going to have to babysit this bird. Because this thing is probably... It's not even equipped with a dipping. Huh. Okay, so... your only option in dealing with submarines is making sure that your ship detects it, and then you send your helo out to go and meet it. Because you have no other options. You have no other gear. We don't even have a towed array. This thing is very good at air defense. Let's see if we can pick that up. Yep, active sensor from Dauntless did pick it up. So the sonar array is good enough. Now, what about the air search? Because I did put up some air contacts to see how well this thing can do. Moving on to what these things are designed to do. These Darings are supposed to go after air targets. So I've set up a bunch of air targets, and let's see what it does. We're going to go and activate the air search, and there they are. Weapons are free. I'm first going to let Daring do the shooting, and then we're going to switch to Dauntless, because she has some slightly different systems. I mean, it's largely the same thing. It's the Aster 30, which is the same thing that Daring carries, but she also carries those Cam Sams, And I think they're just slightly different. Yeah, the Brits got 2.5 mile extra. That's it. Attack altitude is 6 feet versus 10 feet, and that could make a difference. I have seen some weapons sea skim at about 6 to 8 feet. So that little bit of difference might just save the ship. Now we have picked them up on radar. I'm just going to classify everything as hostile because I happen to know that it is. Some of them are coming in on fairly high altitude, 30,000 feet. Some of them are coming in at, I think 10, but they're moving to 30. And you can see, here we go. We already have issues, by the way. We have a couple of jamming drones which are coming in. In case you're not familiar with these, they're probably introduced by one of the mods that I'm currently running. I'm not sure exactly which one it is. Pelt, maybe? Anyway, there goes the aircraft. These are suppression of enemy air defense options. So this is trying to knock out the radar from daring. And I think that those missiles have taken priority over everything else. You are weapons tight, check. Oh, you went after the missiles. Wait a second. Oh, right. The missiles were not in range by the time that I launched them. But since they're coming towards me, that's when they're getting in range. Like this one, it's just on the edge of the Aster 30 range. But it doesn't care, because the missile is going to be closer by the time that we actually are going to get attacked. And in case you're wondering, yes, I did knock out the the submarines. I just took them out of the scenario. Mostly because I had lots and lots and lots of issues with the PC today. Rather yesterday, and it just decided to freeze up a lot. And for some reason today it's fine. I don't know. But if there is going to be a break in content, this might be why the PC is acting up. Now this is interesting. We have lots of Aster 30s heading for those relatively few jamming drones. If they decide to send out portions of missiles in those numbers, you might not have enough to defend. I imagine these ships were going to be escorting the aircraft carrier. And in that role, I suppose they're going to be doing as little air defense as possible. Because you got your jets for that. They have their, what is that? The F-35, I think, on the QE2. So that should put up a primary perimeter. Which means that these things are more of a last resort, or if she's operating without support from the aircraft carrier. So far, I'm not disappointed at all in the performance of these missiles. Intercept it. Intercept it. Some of these missiles are still carrying on. Aster 30s are not guided to the platform, so they just launch. And it looks like you can't talk to them anymore after that. Is that true? Yes, you have no mid-course correction. That can be a good thing. It can also be kind of bad, because if you don't have a mid-course correction, goodbye to you 16s. If you don't have a mid-course correction, and you happen to have a friendly bird in the area, as I have had, that could spell doom. Because I have shot down my own aircraft because an Aster, or no, what was it? I think a Mica missile decided to go off course. And then I could still talk to it and say, no, 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 no. That's a friendly. Don't chase that. Or at least don't head in that direction. If you don't have mid-course correction, that is not a possibility. You're just gonna fall flat. Now, as for this weapons test, I'd say they fire adequately fast. That is not a problem. And they seem to have no problem guiding lots of missiles at the same time either. So especially if you want to engage targets at long range, that's not a problem with the Daring. And I think Dauntless pretty much is the same loadout, so it doesn't matter that much. Now overall, I think these will make adequate destroyers. Don't put them into the Persian Gulf because they'll melt down, or at least they'll they'll potentially have had issues with their cooling. Otherwise, yeah, nice ship. Nice ship. Let me know what your thoughts are below. If you want to download this description, there is the link to the mod. And, well, I think we might see these in Sea Power potentially later. If the devs decide to ever incorporate a more modern timescale. Or in a scenario at some point. Thank you for watching. I'll see you soon for more Sea Power.